You start something new, and it feels different this time. Clear, certain. You tell yourself quietly, this is it. You picture where it could lead. You feel energy you haven't felt in months. You begin learning, practicing, thinking about it constantly. It starts to become part of how you see yourself. For a while, it feels like forward motion, like alignment. And then something subtle changes. You don't notice it immediately. The excitement becomes quieter. The clarity fades. You open the same project, but the emotional pull isn't there anymore. You hesitate. You wonder why it suddenly feels heavier. You try to force the feeling back. You remind yourself why you cared so much, but it doesn't land the same way. Confusion follows, then frustration, then the quiet question you don't want to ask. Why does this keep happening to you? You start to doubt your own mind, your own consistency, your own future. But what if the problem was never your discipline? After it happens enough times, the pattern stops feeling like coincidence. It starts to feel like evidence. You don't just question the path, you question yourself. You remember how certain you felt at the beginning, how convincing it was. And now that certainty feels suspicious. You begin to wonder if your own excitement is something you can trust at all. What once felt like intuition now feels like deception. Eventually, you stop trusting your own decisions. Even small choices begin to carry tension. You hesitate before committing. You second-guess your own judgment before you even act. You start watching yourself from a distance, as if you're someone unpredictable. You see other people moving forward in straight lines. They choose something and they stay with it. Their progress looks stable, linear, understandable. And compared to that, your path feels fragmented, incomplete. You begin to wonder if they have something you don't. Discipline, clarity, consistency. And over time, this stops feeling like a temporary phase. It begins to feel like a permanent flaw, like there's something unreliable at the core of you. So you stop fully believing in your own direction. You move more carefully, more quietly, not because you lack ambition, but because you no longer trust yourself to stay. But there's something important you were never taught to consider. What if the problem wasn't your character, but the assumptions you were using to measure yourself? You were told, directly or indirectly, that success follows a straight line, that stability is proof of discipline, that staying is always better than leaving. So every time your direction shifted, it felt like you were violating something fundamental. But that assumption was never universally true. It was only true for a certain kind of mind. Some people aren't wired to follow one path. They're wired to discover paths. There are people whose brains naturally prefer stability. They feel comfortable choosing early and refining over time. Their energy deepens through repetition. Their clarity strengthens through consistency. But there are others whose minds are built differently. Your attention moves toward possibility. Your motivation is driven by discovery. You don't just want to repeat what's known. You're pulled toward what isn't known yet. And when something becomes fully predictable, your mind begins searching again. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is designed to detect what's next. Both patterns are real. Both patterns are valid. They are simply optimized for different ways of moving through the world. To understand why this happens, you first need to understand what your brain is actually trying to do. Your brain was never designed with modern careers in mind. It was designed to help you survive in uncertain environments. At its core, your brain is a prediction and adaptation system. It constantly asks two quiet questions in the background. Should I continue with what I know, or should I look for something better? This balancing act has always been essential for survival. If you only stayed with what was familiar, you might miss new opportunities. But if you only chased the unknown, you would never benefit from what you had already built. So the brain evolved to manage both stability and discovery at the same time. A key part of the system involves dopamine. Dopamine is often misunderstood as a pleasure chemical, but its real role is motivation and attention. It helps your brain notice what feels meaningful, new, or potentially valuable. It pushes you toward learning, exploration, and opportunity. Some brains are naturally more sensitive to these novelty signals. When something is new, your brain becomes highly engaged. Your attention sharpens. Your energy increases. But once that environment becomes predictable, the signal weakens. Your brain begins scanning again, not because you chose to lose interest, but because it is designed to detect change. You can think of this as two operating modes your brain constantly shifts between. One mode is exploit mode. This is where the brain focuses on refining something known. It values repetition, consistency, and long-term stability. The other is explore mode. This is where the brain scans for new patterns, new information, and new possibilities. It prioritizes discovery and adaptation. Every person uses both modes, but some brains naturally remain in explore mode longer. This means your nervous system is continuously updating its internal map. It is sensitive to shifts. It notices subtle signals others ignore. It moves toward learning, even when that learning requires leaving behind what once felt certain. This is closely connected to something called cognitive flexibility. This is your brain's ability to shift perspectives, connect ideas across different areas, and update its understanding based on new information. It allows you to adapt quickly, but it also makes rigid, single-track paths feel unnatural over long periods. The brain is constantly deciding whether to continue refining what it knows or to search for something better. This difference in wiring once played a critical role in human survival. But in the modern world, it can easily be misunderstood. For most of human history, survival did not depend only on people who stayed with what was known. It also depended on people who felt pulled beyond it. Early human environments were unstable. Food sources disappeared, seasons changed. Entire regions became unsafe without warning. Groups that survived were not just the ones who preserved routines, but the ones who sensed when it was time to move, when it was time to search, when it was time to discover something new. Exploration-oriented minds played a critical role in this process. These individuals were often the first to notice subtle changes, a shift in animal movement, a new water source, a different path through unfamiliar terrain. Their sensitivity to uncertainty was not a defect, it was information. It allowed them to detect opportunity where others saw only risk. Human progress has always depended on the people who didn't stay on one path. Some people preserved what worked. They refined tools, strengthened systems, and created stability. Others moved outward. They experimented. They adapted. They found what worked next when the old ways stopped working. Both roles were necessary. Neither was superior. They were complementary parts of the same survival system. If your mind naturally moves toward discovery, it reflects a pattern that has existed throughout human history. A nervous system designed to scan, learn, and adapt when conditions change. But the modern world doesn't always recognize this kind of wiring for what it is. The modern world is built around a very specific model of progress. It assumes that success comes from choosing a direction early and staying with it consistently over time. From the beginning, you are asked to decide. In school, you choose subjects that begin shaping your future options. The students who perform best are often the ones who stay focused on the same track year after year. They refine the same skills. They deepen in one direction. Career systems follow the same structure. You specialize. You gain experience in a defined role. You move upward through predictable stages. Each step rewards continuity. Each step assumes stability. This structure naturally favors brains that operate primarily in exploit mode. These brains feel comfortable refining what they already know. They gain energy from repetition. Their motivation strengthens as they move deeper into the same domain. But exploration-oriented brains operate differently. Your nervous system is constantly updating. It notices new information quickly. It responds to emerging possibilities. When something no longer feels aligned, your brain does not easily suppress that signal. It shifts attention toward what feels more meaningful, more adaptive, or more relevant to your current understanding. This makes you highly responsive to change. But it also makes rigid, linear systems feel constraining over time. The system rewards stability, but your brain is optimized for discovery. When you struggle to stay on one path, it can feel like you are failing to do something simple that others manage without effort. But the difficulty does not come from a lack of discipline. It comes from operating in an environment designed for a different cognitive pattern. Your brain is doing what it was designed to do. It is scanning, updating, and adapting in response to what it learns. And the same wiring that makes linear paths difficult also gives you abilities most people never develop. When your brain spends more time in exploration mode, it is constantly exposed to new environments, new ideas, and new types of problems. Each time you move into something unfamiliar, your brain is forced to build a fresh internal model. It has to learn quickly. It has to adjust. It has to find patterns in uncertainty. Over time, this begins to create strengths that are not always visible from the outside. Because you've seen different systems, different skills, and different ways of thinking, your brain becomes unusually good at recognizing connections. You begin to notice similarities between things that appear unrelated. Ideas from one area start informing your understanding of another. What seems disconnected on the surface begins to form a deeper internal structure. This is where creativity often emerges, not from staying in one place, but from integrating across many places. Your brain learns how to combine concepts, perspectives, and experiences into something new. You are not just repeating what already exists. You are reorganizing it. You also become more adaptable. Change does not feel as destabilizing because your brain is familiar with change. It knows how to enter new environments and learn quickly. It knows how to adjust its expectations and rebuild clarity. The same trait that makes you switch paths makes you capable of seeing what others miss. While stability-oriented individuals refine depth in one domain, exploration-oriented individuals develop breadth. They build cognitive flexibility. They learn how different systems behave. They become faster at learning itself, because learning is no longer foreign. It is familiar territory. This kind of growth can look fragmented from the outside. It may seem inconsistent, but internally, it is building something cohesive. Your brain is not resetting each time. It is layering knowledge. Each experience strengthens your ability to understand patterns, adapt to complexity, and navigate uncertainty. Success does not always follow a straight line. Some forms of success emerge from integration rather than repetition, from seeing connections others cannot see yet. But this wiring only becomes an advantage when you understand how to work with it instead of against it. Having an exploration-oriented brain does not mean drifting without direction. It means your progress follows a different structure. The goal is not to suppress your instinct to explore, but to work with it in a way that creates stability over time. One of the most important shifts is to stop forcing permanent identity decisions too early. When you try to define your entire future based on limited experience, your brain resists because it recognizes that it does not have enough information yet. Instead of demanding certainty up front, allow your identity to form gradually. Let it emerge through exposure, through practice, and through lived understanding. Clarity becomes more stable when it is discovered, not forced. It also helps to make your exploration intentional. Exploration becomes destabilizing when it is reactive, when it happens without awareness. But when it becomes conscious, it turns into a powerful tool. You begin choosing experiences not just because they are new, but because they expand your perspective, strengthen your thinking, and deepen your internal map of the world. At the same time, shift your focus away from staying loyal to one path and toward building skills that transfer across many paths. Skills stay with you. Your ability to think, communicate, adapt, and learn does not reset when your direction changes. Each experience adds new tools. Nothing is wasted. You are not lacking control. Your progress is cumulative, even when it appears nonlinear. When you understand this, you stop seeing yourself as someone who can't stay on one path and start seeing yourself as someone who is building something much larger. At the beginning, it didn't feel like wiring. It felt like failure. It felt like you couldn't hold on to certainty. Like every time you moved towards something with confidence, it eventually slipped away. You wondered if something inside you was unstable. You questioned your discipline, your judgment, your ability to build a future you could trust. But that interpretation was incomplete. You were never behind. You were building differently. What looked like inconsistency was your brain exploring. What felt like lost time was exposure. Each shift added information. Each experience expanded your internal model. You weren't resetting, you were integrating. Your mind was learning how different systems work, how patterns repeat across environments, how to detect meaning beneath the surface. You were developing adaptability, even when it didn't look like progress from the outside. Your path was not linear, but it was not random. It was guided by curiosity, by sensitivity to change, by a nervous system designed to update itself continuously in response to the world around you. Nothing about that is broken. It simply means your growth followed a structure that was harder to see. And when you understand this, you stop fighting yourself and start working with the way your mind was designed. What once felt like instability now has a different meaning. Your mind was never working against you. It was working in the only way it knows how. Scanning, learning, adapting, building a deeper map of the world through experience. Understanding this changes how you see your past, but it also changes how you approach your future. If this feels related to you, like this video, and click the subscribe button for more content like this.